much buying up the whole city. And with that being told, him and the mayor are really good friends. So from certain people's perspective, and I'll say mine, it's okay for recording, I really felt like he became the mayor so this whole plan could be played out, right? So I'm from Wilmington. I grew up on 23rd and Concord. I left for a little while in regards to where I do my business. I specifically came back and started servicing Wilmington companies, specifically when they released that article about Wilmington is the worst place to fulfill the American dream. At that point, I knew the only way to change our communities is if we all bring our skill sets back to the table. So on purpose, I put my office on Market Street and I began to service Delaware companies at a different price point than I do my normal companies. Other companies outside of Wilmington. Then what happened was back in October, they released an article that said that Wilmington is the worst place to fulfill the American dream. And I was like, you know what, I'm done. Because what's happening is they're putting out a negative narrative to stop people from wanting to be in Wilmington, which also causes the value of the properties to decrease. If Wilmington was the worst place to fulfill the American dream, would they be dropping millions and millions of dollars here? It's just common sense, right? So what I wanted to do is to level the playing field, because now it's not even about race. Like Wilmington used to be really racial divided, it's more economically divided. So what I wanted to do to level the playing field is to bring people together that have a level of knowledge or level of expertise and allow them an opportunity to share their knowledge. It's amazing people that have come here. And sometimes it's people that you know and you never knew that that person knew that or had that background. Like how many of you knew that Malcolm is actually a real chemist? Wow. Exactly.
I didn't know that.
Malcolm is a real chemist.
I didn't know that.
And so I bring that up to say some of us engage with him all the time. We follow him on social media and we would never know that. So the goal for the membership here at the Wealth Factory, Wealth League, is to just provide opportunities like this every Wednesday night where we bring in an expert that teaches on entrepreneurship, real estate, and investing. And then we also have other events that I'll show you guys later after the presentation. We actually started back in January. We've been meeting consistently ever since February, March, with a nucleus of people, and now we're opening it up to other members. Having said that, I want to be really transparent and share that tonight is actually one of the ones that's most important to me. I don't know Mr. Carlos personally. We literally just met when he walked through the door, but I'm going to share why this is really important to me. For whatever reason, generationally, there's been a gap. Back in the day, the older generation would sit down and teach the younger generation, and I call it passing the baton. I cannot figure out what the disconnect is. I'm about to tear up, but it's that I'm just that passionate about this. So the fact that he was willing to, not even knowing who we are, not even knowing who I am, but willing to come here and share his expertise and just share his heart, and more importantly, give us the tips and tricks so we can stack and flip. People pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for these. I don't know if you see those ads on your social media, but it's like 10 grand just to get in the room for an hour. And so I'm saying that to say to y'all, value what he's about to give tonight. All I ask is that you hold the questions to the end. There's gonna be a time for questions. I just wanna allow him the privilege of giving out what he feels we need to know tonight. And then at the end, if you could just give him your thanks. And if you have any questions about the Wealth League or the co-working space, I'm available and I'll be walking through, okay? So what I want to do, I just want to read his bio so that you guys, if you guys didn't read it on social media. Carlos Thompson is a Brooklyn, New York native and retired warden of the Rikers Island Correctional Department. He is a real estate guru with over 30 years of experience and has built a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. Y'all better clap it up. He successfully used his 9-to-5 job to retire by the age of 45. Right.
Yes.
I'm late. He just pulled my card. I gotta catch up. And fund his real estate investments. His expertise includes buying, renting, selling, property management, flipping, renovation, financing strategies, and auction sales. He is an expert in acquiring tax-lien properties and has bought and sold over 50 homes since he relocated to Delaware in 2008. So, commercial. For all the people that are out here saying that Wilmington is the worst place to be, there's no money here in Wilmington, it's so many people that come from out of town and just start digging up the gold.
Yep.
All I'm saying to y'all, if you're from Wilmington, y'all better wake up. Tonight is a wake-up call. He currently owns and manages 15 rental properties in Delaware and New York. He enjoys sharing knowledge and acquiring and managing real estate. If everyone could clap it up for the real estate guru.
welcome. Thanks, Tamara. Appreciate the opportunity to share my real estate experience and expertise. As she said, definitely something that I often think about. You Delawareans, you people that are from here, she's 100% right. People are coming from out of town like me and others, they're coming from out of town and they buying up everything. There is a lot of opportunity in Wilmington. Hopefully after this presentation tonight, my goal is to just to get you, again, real estate is so vast, it's a lot. I'm just going to try to my best to give you a basically kind of overview of the real estate investment, the opportunities, so on and so forth. And hopefully you'll glean something and you'll be able to, if this is what you decide to do, you'll be able to be successful in your real estate endeavors. With that being said, let's get right to it. Basically, again, this is, as she read my bio, in addition to what you see here on the screen, there's a couple of things about me. Number one, I'm a disciplinarian. It definitely takes discipline in any kind of business that you're going to pursue. You need to be disciplined. You need to be focused, goal-oriented, driven, so on and so forth. And you'll have, you know, the naysayers, the doubters, so on and so forth, that will just try to put doubt in your ears. You have to definitely get away from those people, get focused, get on your grind, be about your business. As just a little quick story, something that motivates me. We need to find things that will motivate us, and each and every one of us, it takes something different. As a child, I remember as a kid going to school, and back then we used to have the little basement parties. Anybody remember basement parties? A lot of y'all young people, y'all know nothing about that. But for the older folks, the basement party was the John Blaze back in the day. And I remember asking my mother, could I go to the party? And what happened was, I think it was, I don't know, $2, $3 at the time. And what my mother said to me was, if you have money, you can go anywhere. But what she meant was, get out of my face. I ain't got no money for you. That's what she meant. I took it to mean something totally different. If you got money, you can go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? I came from New York with some money, came down here and put a dent in the real estate market in Delaware. If you got money, you can go anywhere. So that was one of the things that I carried through my childhood into my adulthood. What makes me an expert? Plain and simple. I made a ton load of money. I made a ton load of money. I mean, I need to say any more? I made a lot of money. In addition to that, I have over, as she said, over 30 years experience doing this. And anything you've been doing that long, if you ain't good, you need to give it up and find a job or something. So, another thing, during the housing market crash, you guys remember that, when real estate drops on and so forth. During that time, instead of losing money, I absolutely made money. Mm-hmm. While people was losing their real estate, I was buying like it was nobody's business. And one of the reasons why I was able to do that, we're gonna talk more later, is that whenever you want to acquire investment property, you don't buy because they're selling. You buy because it's at the right price. You follow what I'm saying to you? So you wanna buy a property, you know, for X amount, but at the end of the day, it's worth, you know, Y amount. So during the housing market crash, a lot of people lost their shirts, and that's because the houses that they had, they bought them basically at what the houses were worth, and there was no wiggle room in there. I had ton loads of wiggle room. So this here, I'm gonna go over just a couple of, highlight a couple of houses that I bought, like this one here. This is my first house ever. I bought this house back in 1989. That was my first purchase property, 1989. I was 27 years old. I bought that house at actually $155,000. I sold it 2006 for $550,000. So needless to say, it was a nice payday. That particular house was, when I bought it, again, I paid $155,000 for it, and I bought it with $90,000, roughly $90,000 with equity in it. How many people own homes here? Now, one of the things that I did with this first house is it was equity. As I said, I bought it with $90,000 worth of equity. And normally when people buy their first home, it normally ain't no equity. It normally take you forever and a day to acquire equity. I bought it with equity, and that's the goal. You want to buy a property with equity. And so I bought it with equity, and I was able to pull the equity out and parlay that. It don't make sense to have that money sitting there when you can take that money and utilize it to make money for you. On the second one, this one here is the first investment property. This property here I bought for $25,000. Sold it, as you can see, for $450,000, right, from 10 years later. In addition, this property here, I collected a whole gang of rent in the 10 years before I actually sold it. Another thing I want to just mention about this property, and people that try to scare you when it comes to buying property in the not so nice part of town. I made some of my best money, as you can see, buying houses in the not so nice part of town. It's important to find out what's going on, what's happening in the community, what are they talking about, what are they going to be building, what are they going to be doing. But because if you can get properties, it makes sense now because they do a lot of gentrification in Wilmington. I'm telling you now, it makes sense to buy those properties. You can buy those properties for a song and a dance. Some of them not even a dance. You can get them in a song, right? And what you have to do is just hold on to the property. Hold on to the property. And of course, the property, as long as it take care of itself, even if you don't make any money, this property here initially, I wasn't making that much money, right? But eventually, as time went on, I started to make a little bit more, so on and so forth. And then the grand payday, $450,000. The third one here, this is one of the biggest sales that I've done. I've done a whole lot of these, but I've done over $1 million. I've done one here where I actually bought it for $250,000 and I sold it for $1.5 million. And I had that house, probably about 10 years or so. And so if you add the rent that I collected for the 13 years or so that I had it, I actually made in all total about the $1.5 million, right? Not a bad deal. And I forgot to mention it, but let me just go back. When we went back, can you go back for a second? Yeah. And I mentioned here, go back again, the graduate from the School of Hard Knocks. I actually put that there because I want you to understand, I don't have a degree. How many degrees in the house?
Too many.
Yes. How many student loans?
Too many student loans, yeah.
I don't have a degree. And thank God that you don't need a degree to become wealthy. Because I would not be. So again, I want to just point that out. I mean, and that's not that I get anybody with a degree, don't get me wrong. But again, a lot of people that have degrees, it's not about, of course, that paper that's hanging on the wall. It's not about, really, in my opinion, it's not even about how much money you make, but it's what you do with the money you make. Again, those of us that own properties, over and over again, I've seen people pull equity out of their property to buy cars, to buy all kind of other stuff, instead of taking that money and allowing that money to work for them. The goal is to, if you got equity in the house you want to use, let me just say this to you, I just thought about this. As Tamara mentioned, when you go to these seminars, when you pay thousands of dollars and whatnot to attend these seminars, one of the things that they sell you is they say these different packages, right? First of all, I hope ain't nobody never fell victim to that, but hopefully after this year you will never do that, right? It's absolute nonsense, right? It's all designed to just take your money. Because what they do is they actually have people scouting and they get to know you, they meet you on a one-on-one, and the first thing they start talking about is what do you own, what you got, so on and so forth. So their goal is to find out what you have and what they get pulled out of you. So if they know you got a house, for argument's sake, and you owe $100,000 on the house, but it's a $300,000 house, they're gonna try to get you to take that $200,000 of equity and invest it in them, right, by buying these packages. That's what they do. You know what I'm saying? And oh my God, I can't tell you how many people run refinance, get them all their money, and they sell you some papers and tape and CD, and it's all nonsense, right? Let's go to the next one. this is just a couple of things I listed just here in Wilmington. Now, of course, when you look at the money I made in Wilmington, the money I make in Wilmington is nothing compared to the money I made in New York. Of course, it's a different market, right? But at the end of the day, it's money. You follow what I'm saying to you? Like, for example, this is one that I bought. I bought this house for like $76,000. I spent about a good $50,000 in the renovation. This house I rented for a year, collected about $1,100, $1,200 a month, and then I sold it for like $235,000. So that's not exactly right. I think it was all said and done, kind of walked away with $134,000. And you're talking about something that I did, right? Basically, in 2 years' time from the time that I actually bought it, you know what I'm saying, rented it, and then sold it. So for a year, I got some residual income off of it, and then I sold it, and I made that money. So there is money in Wilmington. Don't let nobody fool you. The second one here, this one here is, I paid $3,000 for this particular property, put about $25,000 in renovation costs, so total $28,000 investment. This particular property, because of the location, right, you're not gonna sell this property really, not now anyway, make any money. I knew that up front, so I decided that I was gonna sell this, leave that money there, park that $28,000 there, and rent it for $900 a month. Right? Now, one of the things that they teach us, you know, they taught us in school and whatnot, is you work hard. I'm with that, work hard. Right? Everybody with me? Work hard. But the problem that I have is the next part, is save your money. I say work hard and what? Invest your money. Right. For example, that house previous, the last house I showed you, where I got $28,000 total in that. If you look at the chart, this is basically give you an idea of what you would get for your money if you put the money in the bank. If you put this money in the bank, $28,000 in the bank, right, you're gonna get anywhere from 0.5 to 3% annually, right? On the $28,000 figure, you're gonna get anywhere from $14 to $840 a year. Who does that? Where they do that at? I mean, where they do that? Right? Y'all can't tell me, so I'm gonna move on. Quick story. Wells Fargo, one of the banks that I do banks with, and I don't even know the title because they don't even matter, but they got people in the bank. And what they do is their job is to go through the accounts and see who got money, right? Am I right? Right? See who got money. So I get a call one day, ring, Mr. Thompson, my name is so-and-so, I'm at the Wells Fargo Bank. I'd like to sit down and talk with you about, you know, investing your money, blah, blah, blah. And I said to myself, you really want to talk to me? But okay, well, you know what? On one of my trips there, because I don't really go to the bank. As a matter of fact, I got my banker in the house. There you go, right there. Derek, shout out to Wells Fargo right there. He'll tell you that the only time I come to the bank is to deposit money. Every time I walk in there, Mr. Thompson, you withdrawing? No, I ain't withdrawing nothing. All I'm doing is depositing money. So this particular day, I go into the bank and I go to see the individual that called me on the phone. And I sat down with him and, you know, so he began to explain to me why I should, you know, get, invest in this and get this CD and this, that, and the other. And I sat there and I listened to him. And of course, when we went over these numbers, I just cited a couple real estate deals. And you know what he said to me? I can't do nothing for you. I can't do nothing for you. But that goes to show you, right, what they do is they take your money, right, invest your money, and give you some crumbs from your money, right? So the key is to take your money and allow your money to make money for you, right? This is an absolute joke, all right? So you're talking about anywhere from, again, $1,400 to $840 a year. I'm getting $900 a month, and that's just for starters. Right? Makes sense. Let me just say this while I'm thinking about it, and I hear people all the time, you know, they scared to death of like tenants, you know, and hear horror stories, blah, blah, blah. First of all, when someone is talking to you, number one, my mama told me this a long time ago, consider the source. Most of the people that are talking to you ain't got nothing. They repeating what they heard somebody else say.
They have a tenant.
Right, they ain't got a tenant. They can't spell tenant. You know what I'm saying? So now they trying to, you know, pass some information on that they heard that's incorrect. right? So again, and listen, at the end of the day, anything worth having is worth working for. So I'm not going to tell you. I remember my very first investment property. I inherited the tenant from hell. And let me tell you something, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, right, that you need you to know, is that I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit. And I need you to know that's natural, and you're going to feel that way. And what happened, thank God at the time, I had an individual that I kind of considered, he was like a father figure to me, and I kind of learned some things from him. And what happened was at that time, I was 26, 27 years old, and I was so fed up with this tenant because what happened was I bought a 3-family house, the $25,000 house. Now, you know, what happened, it was water in the basement up to your knees. There was no heat in the building. The place was just a mess, right? But it was a joke of living on the first floor, in the first floor apartment. So what happened was I went in and I said, oh, okay, I'm excited. My first investment property, I'm excited. Listen, tell the guy, listen, I'm working on the 2 apartments upstairs. You know, as soon as I finish upstairs there, listen, you ain't got to pay me no rent now because your place is a mess. You shouldn't be paying no rent for this place. Right? So as soon as I finish upstairs, I'm going to come down and I'm going to take care of your place. And at that point, you can start paying me rent. So, now mind you, my first investment property, I'm robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And it's okay to rob from Peter to pay Paul. Again, I see people robbing Peter to pay Paul to buy nonsense. I robbed Peter to pay Paul. When I tell you I robbed Peter to pay Paul, I took my paycheck, right? And I was paying guys. You know what I'm saying? I took credit cards. Anybody ever heard the story of Spike Lee about how he actually became wealthy and whatnot? Spike Lee used credit cards. In the beginning, he had no money. Right? So you can use whatever tools available. And credit cards, again, we use them to buy foolishness at the end of the day. That's what we use it. We use it to buy foolishness. I use those credit cards. I squeeze the daylights out of those credit cards to pull money from those credit cards to invest. Because I know at the end of the day, I'm going to get a return. And guess what? I write a big fat check at the end of the project to pay off the credit card. Make sense? Yes. Right. But when you take that credit card and buy all this shit stuff, and you don't have any income coming in other than the paycheck, you got to depend on the paycheck to pay that credit card. So my philosophy, my thought process from the beginning was to, again, be smart with my money. And I'm actually my mother had 5 kids. I'm the actual middle child. There's 2 over me and 2 under me. Now, I say that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I need you to understand that I came from poverty. You don't want to hear the story about how I found out that we was on welfare. Because I didn't even know it. I didn't know we was on welfare. And what happened was one day, I used to eat the peanut butter. I love peanut butter even today. Anybody like peanut butter? Mm-hmm. I love peanut butter. I eat the peanut butter out the can. And see a lot of young people here. I guess they talk some older folks. Silver can with the black writing on it. I'm eating out the can, walking through the house, eating out the can. And, everybody back in my day, had a bubble on the block. Big, black, burly guy. He was a kid, but he's just bigger than everybody. Named Bubba. And what happened was Bubba rang the doorbell. And I run to the door with the can of peanut butter, and I'm eating it. And soon as Bubba see the can, Bubba said, ooh, y'all on the welfare.
Black and white label.
Now, I heard of people being on the welfare, but why I thought we wasn't on welfare? I thought we was rich. I thought we had money. You know what I'm saying? Because we had plenty of food in the fridge and all that. I thought we was doing it. Didn't know we was on welfare, right? So Lord, where was I?
Where's his next slide? He's not going off on a tangent. Second thing is how you're an expert.
That makes me an expert is I've mastered the art of rehab. Acquiring the property is one thing, rehab is something else, right? So this is where really the challenges come in with the rehab. And this particular case, as you can see, this is just some before and after. I bought the house all boarded up. You know what I'm saying? Oil tank out front, this and that, and the other. You see there's no oil tank there. Converted the house. Did total renovation on the house. We can go to the next slide. Okay. Right, this is the backyard. Again, this is before, this is after. You see the guys up there working on the roof, so on and so forth. Again, in the backyard, it looked like Afghanistan in the beginning, as you see, right? And let me tell you something, when it comes to the renovation or the rehab, a lot of it is cleaning up. And it don't really cost you that much to clean up. You can get a couple of guys and whatnot that ain't doing nothing, and they can clean. You know, they can pick up stuff. You can give them a rake, give them some room, so on and so forth. So you can save some money when it comes to things like that. Yeah, just this alone, you see how different that is? Now, I ain't planting no grass. All I did was just, pick up the garbage there. And then, of course, put a new fence in next. This is on the inside. So I gutted the house completely. And one of the reasons why I gutted that house is because I wanted to change the actual layout of the house. If you see this wall right here, this doorway, I wanted to open it up, right? Because what happened is this house was built early 1900s, and it was sort of kind of box. So I went in and just changed really the whole layout because I wanted to be more desirable, more up to date, so on and so forth. And this house, not to boast or brag, is the best house in that community. And everybody say it, and I know it, but everybody say it. And that's because what happens is contractors come in and they basically trying to floss over what's there. I changed the whole layout. Another thing that makes me an expert is I've managed my properties from day one. I manage all of my properties, and I happen to like, working with my hands. I like getting dirty, so on and so forth. As you can see here, I'm cutting grass, because I'm not above that right now. I'll cut some grass, I'll do whatever I have to do to get the job done. And the thing is that you don't necessarily, if this is not you, and you got women in the game, right, that don't want to get their hands dirty. Just know that if you choose not to get your hands dirty, then you're gonna pay a little bit more. That you can get a management company to manage your properties, and you're gonna pay anywhere from like 7 to 10% of the income that property is producing. But it definitely don't hurt to get your hands dirty here. And as you can see, I'm working on. I went from working on the house to working on a car. But again, that's just me. And this is my neighbor, Chrissy, where you at? This is my neighbor right there, coming over to ask me a question about some plumbing and whatnot. So, you want to know how I did it?
Yes.
You want to know how I did it? Well, again, acquisition, learning exactly every house that I buy. Again, I buy it knowing before I buy it that is when it's all said and done, it's going to be worth this, but I'm buying it far down here as I possibly can because you want there to be a nice little gap. The bigger the gap, the greater the income potential of that particular property. So when you basically get that sort of down pat, you know what you're buying. Then the second part, again, is the rehab, the construction part, that phase there. One of the things that's very important about the rehab is that you don't really have to know. You don't have to know all of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff the intricate stuff that I still don't know, but I don't have to know. What I do need to know is I need to know where to get that information from. And nowadays, you guys are in a much better position than I was back in the day because you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Google, you didn't have all this here, access to information. I mean, it's easy to get on Google, get on YouTube and find out information. I didn't have that luxury from back in the day. Exit strategy. Basically, what you want to know is in the beginning, and you want to have this here in your mind, in purchasing the property. When you start to look at a property, the first thing you want to start going over in your mind is what is going to be the end result. Am I going to rent this property? And do I want to flip this property? Do I want to rent it and hold on to it and then flip it? Do I want to rent it and pull the equity out of it? You follow what I'm saying? To allow that place to pay for itself and give me a residual income while I recoup all the money that I put into the property to move on to the next one, right? So that's very, very important. And listen, it's a cycle. You do it once, you just continue to do it. It's the same thing. Now, of course, every deal is not the same. There's different nuances, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the concept is the same. Acquire it, get it up and running, right? And then pull your money out, sell, flip, or whatever the case may be, right? Couple of tips and tricks when it comes to just, again, getting in the game, becoming successful. Number one, right? Mind who you're sitting next to. You know what I'm saying? Connect with like-minded people. Get it involved, get it around, surround yourself with people that want to do what it is that you want to do, right? I mean, one of the things I always say that if you want to learn to play golf, then you want to hang out with the Tiger Woods of the world, right? You want to learn to play basketball, you want to hang out with the Michael Jordans of the world, right? Plain and simple. I learned a lot, and again, I never went to no school, never listened to no seminar, never read no book, none of that, right? I found people in the business, and I followed them around like a lost puppy, right? I remember years ago, I was a young man, 25 years old, and I was going to the store, liquor store, every Friday. What I call my stepfather and a partner of his used to sit and talk about real estate, and I would go there and sit there and just, you know, I listened. They would send me to the store. I would go buy the liquor, come back, pour it for them, get the ice, whatever I had to do, right? And I walked away with a wealth of information. So definitely get with like-minded people. Next. Credit is king. It's very important. Whatever you do, pay your bills, right? Pay your bills. Nowadays, unlike it was when I came up, you can actually get access to all kind of money to finance real estate properties, and your credit is really not a big issue. But at the end of the day, right, you want to have excellent credit, because there's going to be a time when your credit is going to definitely play a role somehow or another. Because even when a bank, whether it's hard money or whatever, just a little leery, a lot of times what they'll do is say, well, we want to really see what you look like. You know what I'm saying? And they'll ask you for a credit report, so on and so forth. So when they realize that, I've had banks tell me, they look at my credit report, oh my God, 30-year history, never one mortgage payment late. And oh God, I don't know how many mortgages I had. Never paid one mortgage payment late. As a matter of fact, I had never even looked at my report until the banker brought it to my attention. Said, listen, we got to give you this mortgage. We got to give it to you, right? Because I pay my bills on time. So this is important, right? Location is a key determinant to whether you rent or you flip. Now, of course, we're talking about buying in these areas that are struggling right now, right? Know that you're going to buy that property to basically hold on to it. You're going to buy it to hold on, right? And again, as long as that property can bring in an income, right, that's all you need, right? Because you want it to be an asset and not a liability. And these properties you can get dirt cheap. But one of the things that I must say is that you have to make it, when you get into this business, you have to make the real estate sort of kind of like your baby. Because at the end of the day, if you take care of it, I promise you it'll take care of you. But you have to take care of it. So you have to make sure when it comes to that extra money, stash it. So when the water tank busts or whatever happens, because it's going to happen. That's just what it is. It's going to happen. So very important. Identify properties in the stretch. So this here is what you want to do when it comes to finding a property that at the end of the day is going to be profitable to you. You want to find a property that's in stretch. And that could be your grandmother. Your grandmother had this house. She done had it for 50 years, right? She's old. She really can't take care of it no more, so on and so forth. She really don't want the responsibility, blah, blah, blah. You know, she wants a little money to make herself comfortable. Buy that house. Because if you don't, I'm going to buy it. Because that's what happens. The investor come in, you follow what I'm saying to you? And he buy your grandmother's house and you sit right there with grandma. Right, so now he gonna give grandma a little $50,000, $60,000 and grandma gonna think she hit lotto, right? And then he got a house that's a $500,000 house, right? So very, very important. And again, that's another reason why it pays to take care of your credit, because even at the end of the day, if you don't have a gang of money, if your credit is right, you'll be able to buy grandma's house and keep an investor from buying it. All right? Again, that exit strategy, very, very important. Again, just knowing when you go in, right? What is my game plan, right? Ask questions. It's never a dumb question, right? But the question is not ask. Ask questions, right? Know what you're going to do, right? And if it's possible, be flexible. Have a couple of options. So if option 1 don't work, you can go to option 2, right? Very, very important. And again, based on how much money you're making in this particular deal, so on and so forth, will determine what you're going to do with this particular property. But again, have an idea of what you're going to do with the property. So that's what I mean when I say exit strategy. Reinvest residual income. If you acquire property and you're collecting rent, big mistake. This is another reason why during the housing market crash, I made money, people lost houses, because what they tend to do, right, is as the house starts to bring in income, they start to spend it. That's what they do, right? So they collect rent. Instead of taking the rent, you're putting it up, using the rent, again, to acquire more property, even to put it away for a rainy day. This, I'm telling you, it's real. They start spending money. I would literally take rent that I collect and just deposit it as if it wasn't even there. You follow what I'm saying too? And instead of rising my or elevating my standard of living, I lowered it. Right? I drive, and my boy Troy here from the gym, my buddy here, tease me because I drive a Raggedy Jaguar to the gym every day. Right? The car's worth about $1,500. It was worth that much, right? But again, what I learned a long time ago, especially being in New York, you go to New York and you get on the subway, this and the other, and you see these guys, man, oh my God, they dressed to the nine. They ain't got no money. They ain't got no money. You know what I'm saying? So here, me, you know, I'm driving a little $1,500 car. You're right. I mean, I got other stuff in the garage, but I drive a little $1,500 car because it's not about, you know what I'm saying, what I got on my back and what I drive. Right? We need to get away from that foolishness. Employee rehab saving strategies, that'll come with time. What happens is that, like anything else, once you do it once, twice, 3 times, right, you start to learn, you start to develop, skill set, and you just take that on to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And one thing I want to say, when it comes to young people, don't think you got all day. Right? One of the things that young people tend to take for granted is the fact that they're young. You remember, right? I was 25 once upon a time. You know what I'm saying? And if you keep living, you're gonna get older. And this thing here is takes time. So you definitely want to get in, roll your sleeves up, get busy, and no time at all, you start to reap the benefits of that. Develop property management and organizational skills. Very, very important. Again, especially if you're going to become a landlord and you want to have, several properties. You like that residual income thing, right? You definitely want to learn about property management. And there's a bunch of stuff, the repair thing. And you need to be organized. You need to be organized because what happens is that things could come back to bite you. Things could come back to bite you in that you'll spend a whole lot of money that could have been avoided had you been on top of your game. So it's very, very important, right, to develop management skills and to be organized, right? And again, especially nowadays, there's so many different tools on the net and every place else to help you get organized. As a matter of fact, we got one of my students in the audience, Damon, come all the way from New York. Let's get the New York people. They came all the way from New York. Anybody else from out of town here? Yeah, came from New York. I remember now. This guy here is 40 years old now. How long you been in the game now? 15 years. About 15 years. Now, how many properties you got now? 4 or 5 properties. He actually we met years ago and. I used to come to a restaurant. He was a waiter. And I was going to a restaurant every day, and I go into the restaurant, and he happened to wait on me one day. And one thing about people like me, you sort of recognize talent. You recognize, he's going somewhere. That person's going somewhere. I looked at that young man. I said, he's going someplace. I can just tell from his energy. So every day after that, when I walk in the restaurant, I said, listen, I want him. I want Damon to serve me. So I would wait, right? And as it turns out, years went by. He used to always hear me talking about real estate, so on and so forth. One day, I'm selling the property, and I happen to go into the restaurant, and just to kill time, because this particular day, I'm just going through the closing just to collect a big flat check. One of them checks that I just showed you there, yeah, like a $400,000 check. So I was just going, so I said, let me take my time, give me a little something to eat. And he walks out and says to me, he wants to get in the game. And people have been telling me that for years. He was serious. And as you can see, came all the way from New York, and he's doing this thing. He's definitely on his way to becoming a millionaire. Very important. Be cautious and avoid overextending yourself. All right? Remember this, there's always going to be a deal. So you have to pace yourself. Right? I think my daughter can tell you this best. She goes to the auction, she's supposed to buy one car, she buy 2 cars. Right? Now, she got herself in a jam because she was only supposed to buy 1, and she bought 2. Right? So you can get excited in the moment. Right? Again, breathe. Right? Take your time. Right? I remember, just going back this very quickly, I had bought a bunch of houses, this, that, and the other, and I'm running 2, 3 crews, and we working, and because it's an addiction for me, because I'm a sucker for a deal. So if you come in with a deal, it's kind of hard for me, to look the other way, turn the other cheek. So I knew at this time, I had my hands full, this, that, and the other. So okay, I'm gonna just go to the auction because I'm addicted to it. I'm just gonna go and I'm a window shopper, right? That's what I said. So I go to the auction and whatnot, and I sit down and whatnot, and after the auction is over, I had bought 2 houses. I said to myself, you're supposed to just window shop. You're supposed to just go. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't supposed to buy nothing, and I walked away with 2 houses. So I walk out and I kind of beat myself up. You know what I'm saying? Listen, you're not supposed to do that. You got a lot going on. You need to just kind of finish up what you're doing. Blah blah blah. So okay, I'm not gonna do that again. I'm not doing that again. I go to the auction the next month, right? I'm not buying nothing from the auction. You know what happened, right? I walked out with another house. So then I had to talk to myself, fool. You know what I'm saying? You can't go no more. And I literally stopped going for months and months and months. Because I knew that if I went, you know what I'm saying? So again, there's always gonna be a deal, right? Pace yourself. You ain't in competition with nobody. Take your time, right? Map out what it is that you need to do, and you'll be fine. Stay focused. This is not this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. These things that you hear on TV, overnight success and whatnot, is a bunch of nonsense. It's designed to get you hyped, you know what I'm saying, to get you to dig it in your pockets, to get you to spend money, right? They're gonna make you think you're gonna be a millionaire overnight. I'm here to tell you it's not gonna happen, right? It's not going to happen. You have to, again, but if you stay true to it, right, it's not hard to do. Because you gotta remember, if you made $300,000 on a couple of houses, and it's very easy to do, especially once you get the little system down pat, it's not hard to do. You could do 3-4 of them houses in 1 year, right? That's over $1 million you made in just that 1 year, right? And guess what? And you can still be working a 9 to 5. Right, makes sense? So again, take your time. We're gonna hand out, this is something I get a lot of questions about, and this is basically, what they're passing out now is sheriff sales. When I came down here in 2006 was the first time I started coming to Delaware. I bought my house in Middletown in 2008, but I came down here in 2006 to actually start looking for a house. And one of the first things that I did was because I knew that I was gonna get involved and buying properties in Delaware. So I told my realtor, I didn't even know where the building was at. So my realtor would take me to the auction. And what I did was I would go to the auction and I would observe. Because in New York, I bought primarily distressed properties, for the most part, foreclosures and short sales, right? Never did any auction buying until I came to the state of Delaware. Mm-hmm. Everybody basically got one there? So this that you have in front of you, in your hand is what you can get online. When I started some 10 years ago down here, you used to actually have to buy this list. And this is just one page. I don't know how many pages in this particular, what's that, 15? Yeah, a whole bunch of houses. Used to buy this list for $10. And what we used to do, and show you how investors do, we would just buy one copy and make copies. Right? Listen, why spend the $10 and you don't have to spend it? Right? So what they started doing was they realized they wasn't making no money, so they put it online. It cost them more money to put the girl down there and do all that printing and all that carrying on. We buy 5 copies and they done printed up 5,000 copies. So I'm going to go over this quickly. If you look at the what's the name, going from left to right, you see where it says type? At the auction, we basically have 3 types of sales. For the most part, judgments, mortgages, and tax liens. So you got one of each on this here. The next one is the attorney that's representing the client. The plaintiff, of course, is the person that's losing it. The next column is the sheriff's number that's assigned to it. The defendant, that's the person that's losing it. The address of where the house that's being auctioned off. The parcel number. The status right there, where it says schedule. You see where it says schedule, right? One of the things that you need to know is that you can look at a house that's on this list today, that's going to be auctioned off. Go back and look at the list tomorrow, and it'll say stayed, right? And what that means is that somebody came and actually stopped the sale, right? What you see in the principal column here is basically, for the most part, it's like a guide on. You can have a rough idea of what the opening bid is going to be. It's normally somewhere around there. As far as attending the auction, you can go as many times as you want as a spectator. It's free, you can get in, it's not a problem. But if you want to bid, a couple things you need. Number one, you need a $5,000 bank check. You need a government issued ID, right? And you need a checkbook with your name on it. Or if you buy it in a corporation, with the corporation's name on it. Again, the printout you have here. Of course, you want to get this list, and if you intend to purchase stuff from the sale, you want the sale is every second Tuesday of the month, and it comes out once a month. You want to get the list like this month, and of course, you start looking at the properties that's going to be auctioned off for the next month, right? So basically, when it comes to mortgages, and it tells you here, self-explanatory. At the time of the sale, it's 10%. So you have to put 10% down that day you buy that mortgage property. If it's a tax lien property, a judgment, it's 100% down that day. So what happens is that you'll buy the property, let's say for $50,000. You'll give them the $5,000 bank check, and then you'll write a personal check for the difference. What you need to know is they deposit that check that day. Right? You don't want that check to bounce. If it bounces in the state of Delaware, it's a felony. You might have Wilmington PD knock on your door. In addition to that, you could be barred from the sale. So you definitely don't want that to happen. And of course, 7 is self-explanatory. You know what I'm saying? The what's name is goes to the highest bidder. And let me just say this to you: don't get intimidated. When I started going to the auction, there was heavy hitters, because there are people that kind of pool their money together, so on and so forth. I was able to buy property right from up under them. And the reason being is I was able to outbid them. Now, the only disadvantage of the sheriff's sale, I forgot to tell you this, I want to mention this, not the sheriff's sale, but the tax lien. The disadvantage is you really need cash. So that's where I beat them up at. right? Because I got the cash and they don't. You know what I'm saying? And then not only that, I'm a one-man show. I'm not splitting anything with anybody, so I can afford to necessarily bid higher than them. So don't be intimidated by those guys. Next.
Do research. You skipped that.
Oh, get research. Well, again, you definitely want to do, I'm glad you mentioned that. Definitely want to do research before you buy the property. You definitely want to do, not only that, you want to go and physically look at the property. And when you get to the property, if you look, notice at the top, it said buyer beware. There's no return counter. No refund counter. No, they're not going to do it. They'll take your money at the auction. So if you buy something, oops, you bought it. You know, yeah. So you want to definitely do your research. You definitely want to go and look. One of the first times that I went to the auction, I'll never forget. There's an African brother sitting up at the front, and he bought a property, and I was there observing. That was one of the times in the beginning I was observing, kind of check out the landscape, see how everything goes, see how the flow goes, blah, blah, blah. Went up to him, and he had bought a property, and we went after the auction that day, and we went and looked at the property. And it was me, him, and another guy. This guy happened to be a contractor. So he had all his tools with him. So when we pull up to the house, this is in Old Newcastle. We pull up to the house, and the house is all boarded up. And the guy that had the tools, you know, got out a screw gun and he pulled the wood off the door, the plywood off the door, and we walked in the house. And as I walked in the house, I said, dang, man, we didn't have to go through all this trouble pulling the wood off the front of the house. We could have just walked around back because there was no back wall on the house. And that's because what? He didn't do his research. He didn't even go and look at the property. He thought because I guess it's in Old Newcastle and whatnot, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now what happens is that he's sick because he definitely didn't have any money to renovate that, didn't see that coming, and he wound up actually in a jam with that property. He tried to sell it to me. But of course, what he paid for it and what it cost to fix, I would have never bought that property from the beginning. So, needless to say, I didn't buy it. All right. So, and another thing I need to say about, just in mentioning about the tax lien properties, is that these properties, for the most part, have vacant fees. Anybody know what vacant fees are? Vacant fees, anybody know vacant fees? Okay, got a couple people. Right, vacant fees. You want to stay away from those vacant fees. You buy these houses and they got vacant fees on them. And the vacant fees basically come from the house being abandoned, not attended to, so on and so forth. One of the things that the city of Wilmington did years ago to keep people like me, people come from out of town, buy these properties, right, and basically kind of walk away from them, this and that and the other, because they don't know what they're doing. And so, of course, brings the property value of the city down. So they came up with this vacant property thing. And it basically, if the property is vacant for a certain amount of time, it starts out, the fine starts out, I think, at $200, like $1,000, I think, and then it goes up to some ridiculous amount of money. And so what happens is that when you acquire that property, if you go in and do what you're supposed to do, renovate the property, this and that, the other, that lien will come off. But if you go in there, you buy that property, and then you don't fix it because they monitor the sheriff's sale. They monitor, so they notice that you bought that property. They'll even reach out to you. Hey, Troy, what you doing with that property? And you're like, okay, I'm gonna get to them. And you don't get to it. In this particular case, because the guy didn't have the money. So when he went to sell it, guess what? He had to pay. So he bought a house, and he bought that vacant fee that was up there. So when he sold the house, he walked away with absolutely nothing because that had to be satisfied. But had he went in and renovated the house, they would have forgave that, and that would have came off.
I'm sorry, it's 1 year vacant is 500, and 2 years 1,000. It keeps going up.
Thank you.
Did you guys hear that?
Go
ahead.
The first year is $500, second year is 1,000, and then it increases by 1,000 to 1,500, then it goes up to 5,000. Like every year, it just keeps
going.
You know the reason why I couldn't cite none of that? Because you know homie don't play that. Yeah, that's why. Because I don't play that. I go in, handle my business, and get out.
So you need to do this part, 90-day redemption period.
Oh, yes, definitely. With the tax liens, 3 scenarios. Number one, there's a 90-day redemption period when you buy a tax lien property. What that means is that the owner, the bank, whoever, has 90 days to redeem the property. So when you buy a tax lien property, and I'll just kind of pass this around, this is what you basically get, a receipt. You don't own the house, you can't touch the house, you can't do nothing with that house, right? So what you do is you get a receipt from the sheriff. If the bank or the owner, whoever has the vested interest, come to redeem that property within the first 30 days, again, first 30 days, you get your money back. The sheriff's office will call you up, said John Brown came to redeem the property, they give you back whatever you paid. So that's worst case scenario. What I love about that is it's safe because you can't lose no money. The only thing you lose at this particular point is a little time. And I think all of us can say we got plenty of that, right? If they come after the 30, but before the 90, this is what I love. Oh, I love these paydays here. You get 20% interest on your money. Now y'all remember that chart about, what, 0.5 to 3%? Who do that? Where they do that at? Right. So I love this because I bought properties and, you know, sure, I might have wanted the property, but at the end of the day, I made $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 in 35 days. Right? That's a nice little, you know, I think we could go, I think we could do a little something with that. Right? So if they don't come in 90 days, then voila, right? You get the property. What happens is that there's another process which is called a no attempt at redemption, which means that the bank, the owner, the kids, the dog, whoever, nobody came to redeem that property. You submit the paperwork to the Superior Court. The Superior Court orders the sheriff. They give you the deed. You get that house free and clear. Even, and this is something that blew the socks off of me, even if it has a mortgage, the mortgage is null and void. You know how many houses that I bought down here that had mortgages on them? Mortgages on them? I got one house right now that I paid $49,000 for it. And that house had 2 mortgages on it. One for $100,000 and one for $75,000. Both was Wells Fargo's. Your people. And you know what happened? I bought that property, and needless to say, the bank slept the sale. And what I mean by that, if you don't come in 90 days, if you don't come in 90 days, that money is gone. So the only thing that the bank is entitled to is what's left over, because the way the auction is designed, the way the law is written, if the city seizes a property for whatever it is, they can only take the money that's owed to them. So the balance of that money, so out of that $49,000 that I paid, I don't remember the numbers, but you know, it probably was, I don't know, 15 grand or something like that. I don't even know if it's that much that the person actually owed, right? So the balance of that money goes to the court. Then the court, not the court, I'm sorry, then the bank has to petition the court, right, to show that they're in first position in order to get that money. But that's not your problem, right? I bought a house in Browntown, one of the first houses I bought when I came down here. Again, had a mortgage on it. I rented the house out, but a year or so later, the tenant calls me up and said, Carlos, there's a foreclosure notice on the door with your name on it. And I laughed. But you know what happened? The attorneys, they play games. What the attorney did, because in order for them to build the bank, they realized that the house was gone. So what they did was, they did some basically phony paperwork, you know what I'm saying? You can't hold me responsible for a mortgage that I never took out. Right? So what they did was, they did this little thing, put my name on it, blah, 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 put the previous owner name on it, put it on the door like it's a foreclosure notice. And basically what I did was, I called up my attorney and I said to them, listen, these people are playing games. And he just sent them an email. And that's all it took. He sent me an email. If y'all don't take this back, right? right? It's gonna be problems. And immediately, they rescinded. Because again, they know that their client, excuse my expression, was ass out.
Right.
Next slide.
Next slide.
Next slide, yeah.
Congratulations. You bought your first property, now do it again. Again, right? It's repetition. It's like anything else, right? If you do it once, you most certainly can do it again. And again, stay focused, true to who you are, bring whatever skills you bring to the table, network. Nowadays, like I said, with social media, Jesus, Lord have mercy. I only wish that I had what you guys got now, which I had back then. I would have bought houses at a much faster pace. So at this time, we can open up some questions. You guys got any questions? Yes, ma'am, in the red. You want to stand up? My sister named Alethea. Yeah.
I was wondering, when you're evaluating a property to purchase and you're looking at the equity, is there a particular floor or ceiling of equity that you're looking at for a deal to make that deal sweet for you? Are you saying you need to purchase at 50% equity when you buy it? What's your that range that makes you sign the deal?
Good question. Basically, in a nutshell, that fluctuates from deal to deal. At the end of the day, you want to make money. And it's a question of, how much. I would say definitely in the beginning, don't be greedy. If you see where, you can make a little 25,000, 30,000, whatever, right? And do it, right? I happen to like to make, if I put up 50 grand, I want to make 50 grand. You know what I'm saying? But there's times when I might make 45. You know what I'm saying? So the beauty about the auction is, and this is what I love about the auction, is that you determine how much you're going to pay. Right? You determine that. Right? Because when you look at that sheet, right? When you look at that sheet and you see, this number over here, so basically it's kind of going to go for that. Right? You say to yourself, after you do your homework and realize, you know what? That house is worth X amount of dollars. And then you have to put in, of course, a renovation cost. And what I always do, and I encourage everyone to do, is give it the maximum. Most houses are not going to need total renovation, most of them. So, but I would give it a total renovation cost. And every time I do that, it winds up being much, much less than that. So that just makes my walk away, my profit, that much more. Did I answer that question for you, sweetie?
Yes, but in terms of pulling out equity, when you're looking at an investment, not necessarily you're going to flip it, let's just say you're going to hold and rent.
Okay.
And so, because of the neighborhood, you're looking at, you may not be able to recover